Are you ready? Because he's ready. It's Master Jeff, martial arts expert, instructor extraordinaire, and general clown. He's not afraid of coronavirus. He's not afraid of the bad guys. Master Jeff is not afraid of anything.
Fool, Master Boom and Master Jeff fight. 2 hits, ladies and gentlemen. I hit Master Boom. He hits the floor. And that will be it. But I got Miami-Dade police officers patrolling the area, watching for that guy. I don't know how he's getting in. Like, the doors are locked, like, every time. And people are telling me, oh, he's in the coffee cup. Right. Like he could fit in a coffee cup. You know, oh, he's in the fun day box. Really? You know, all that was in the fun day box is my underwear, and I don't know how they got in there. You know, so anyway, we're watching for him. I got the old eye out for that guy. I'll get him sooner or later. All right, so today was, sometimes we use, okay, gotcha. Oh, and the Spanglers showed up right in the nick of time, so they're here for the very start of Pal Gwe Day. Master Boom is magic. Oh, all right. When will there be a fight with the M's? Yeah, magic. Right. Yeah, we'll see about magic. He's going to need some magic to cure the black eye. I'm going to give him if I ever get my hands on that guy. All right, so today is all about Pal Guys. So a little history first. When the Japanese occupation was over, the Koreans were kind of stuck with a desecrated culture. You know, the Japanese had come in and just stopped everything, all things Korean. So the martial arts they were practicing, one of them was Shotokan karate. And so when the Japanese left, they kept on, but instead of calling it karate do, which means the empty hand way, they started calling it tang su do, which means the empty hand way. So they just changed the language from Japanese to Korean, and they kept the Japanese forms, which were the heians, which they started calling the pyongyans. So really, tang su do and karate do, Shotokan karate, were the same things, just that the tang su do used Korean terminology. So eventually they said, all right, this won't work. So they threw together a bunch of grandmasters, and they wrote some forms called the Pal Guys. And they changed the name from Tang Soo Do to Taekwondo, the foot fist way. And after a while, they decided, well, you know, the Pal Guys were written in haste. They're kind of square and blocky, so perhaps we should come up with a new style. Besides, the Pal Guys still look like an adjusted version of the pyongyans, so we're going to write some new ones. So they came up with the taeguks, which are still what Taekwondo practitioners use today. So really, at our school, our art is really more accurately called Tang Soo Do, because the oldest Taekwondo by that name used only the Pal Guy forms. And then later, the ones who stuck with the big Korean organization, the Kukkiwon, moved to taeguk forms. And only a few of the holdovers said, no, you know, just because it's Japanese doesn't mean it's bad. We're sticking with Tang Soo Do. Yes, it's a Korean thing. We changed the terminology. We're sticking with Tang Soo Do. And there are still Tang Soo Do schools out there. They're not very popular. There are not very many of them. And Master Shin used to call his style Korean karate, because neither Tang Soo Do nor Taekwondo he felt like Americans could pronounce, you know. And over his dojo, it didn't say shins or anything; it just said karate. And yeah, back in the 70s, he was probably right. But as the melting pot, the salad, the stew, whatever you call, of cultures in America became more and more mixed and more and more cultures, pretty soon Taekwondo got to be like an everyday word. Anyway, so we're going back in history. And one other thing, Master Shin, who's the farthest back lineage that I know for us, Master Shin had hit when they changed from the Pyongans to the Pal guys. He didn't know which way the Korean political Taekwondo winds were blowing. And so he said, we're going to do both. And that's what he did for 20, 30, 40 years, all the time I was there, from 1986 until 19, he may still do them, in fact, or I don't know, or he might have switched to taekwondo, but I left in 98. So definitely from 86 until 98, Shin was doing Pyongans and Pal guys, and for a long time, so were we. But, it's good to sometimes ask, why do you do that? There's an old story of a little girl coming up to her mom. They had a big family reunion, and saw the mom with a roast, and the mom went, choo, choo, cut the ends off the roast. And she said, Mom, why do you cut the ends off the roast? And the mom said, I don't know. My mom always did it. So the little girl saunters over to her grandmother and says, Grandmother, Mom says you used to cut the ends off the roast. Why did you do that? And the grandmother said, I don't know, sweetie. It's just always the way my mother did it. And so she went until she found her great-grandmother and said, Great-grandmother, Mom and grandmother say that they cut the ends of the roast off. And they said that it's because you did it. Why did you cut the ends of the roast off? And she said, oh, sweetie, we had just a very small pot and it wouldn't fit in there. So I cut the ends off to make it round and shape and where it would fit in my pot. And so for 2 generations, the ends of the roast have been wasted because neither the mother nor the grandmother ever thought to ask, why do you cut the ends of the roast off? So I thought to ask, why are we doing Pyongans and Pal guys when every other style on the planet does one set of forms or the other? And the answer was because Shin didn't know which way the political winds were blowing of Taekwondo, so he stuck with both so he could shuck and jive either direction depending on what happened. Then it just got to be a habit, and Master Waserza did it because that's the way Shin did it. And then I did it because that's the way Master Waserza did it. And finally I said, no, I'm going to stop cutting the ends of the pot roast off. We only need 8 forms. 8 forms is a solid style of Taekwondo. It's a tradition accepted for millennia, except for the last 50 years of Shin's. So we got rid of the Pal guys. I think it helped a lot. The quality of kicks went way up. The quality of sparring went way up because we didn't spend so much headache-inducing time on forms. Used to, man, when we did the Pyongans and Pal guys, it's all we did. So imagine if we doubled the workload, if you guys had to learn an entire another set of forms. The bag drills would be gone. The self-defense would only happen once in a while, and sparring once in a blue moon, because we would always be banging on forms, and then nobody would know their forms, and the ones who did, they looked crappy because they were having to learn so many forms. So the good news was we had more time to work on other things. The bad news is that we lost a few cool techniques with the Pal guys. So I myself still keep up with them. And it's always good, if you want to put in extra time to do the Pal guys, because they're good forms, but only if it's extracurricular. Like once you've eaten your vegetables, yes, go and do the Pal guys. And Master Settles, he even knows the taegooks. I have learned all the taegooks several times in my life and then forgotten them every time. So I still recognize them when I see them, but I no longer know them. And Beatrice Salita is here. Very good. Cool. And who else showed up? VX Tutorials by 7, which I'll bet is actually Zogies. Hi, Zogies. How you doing? We have been out busting rocks, dude. My hands are all like, I got a little blister happening right here, if you see that. And over here, I had the jackhammer out, and all here, I've got calloused hands anyway, but my calluses were put anew to the test right there. Ooh. Jackhammer, because we're going to put in a pool and we're trying to level the ground. Dude, this far under the soil is what we call coral rock, but which we've come to learn is actually Dade limestone, or maybe it's called Miami limestone, but there's a plate of it for a few hundred square miles, and that's the only place on Earth that exists. And I hate it. It's supposed to be a rare geological phenomenon. Well, great. Let's get rid of the, mosquitoes might be a rare bug. I don't care. Let's get rid of those, eradicate those little punks. So anyway, that's what we've been out doing. So I am sore and my hands are sore, but I'm going to plow on through what are Paul Guys. Really? Really, what are Paul Guys after all that explanation? Do the rewind and you will see what the Paul Guys are. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what the Paul Guys are. Oh, I bumped the camera and now you can see, whoops, my blue tape. So let me bump it back this way a little bit just to appease my compulsive, obsessive, compulsive sensibilities. All right, so tell me what you see about Paul Guy 1. Note, this would have been what replaces Basic 1. Keep that in mind and tell me what you think. So here's Paul Guy 1. Paul Guy 1. So that's Paul Guy 1. What do you think of Paul Guy 1 as a replacement for Basic 1? Anybody? Anybody? Thank you, Lila. All forms we don't use anymore. That's the short answer for the monologue with which I opened this live stream. El Slicky. Okay, I guess we have a 20-second delay. I will answer your question for you. Basic 1, if you've ever taught a white belt, a young child, perhaps just coming from the Dragons. Yes, Zoe, I love the inside blocks. So at what point would you teach a student Paul Guy 1? A little dragon toddling over from the Dragons class? You're going to teach them all those inside blocks and an open hand middle block? I don't think so. Or how about somebody going for yellow belt? I don't think so. Or even orange belt? Compare it to Basic 3? No. How about Pyongan 1? Okay. Maybe it's on par with Pyongan 1. And in fact, that's when we started teaching the Paul Guys. But there are 8 Paul Guys and there are 8 Pyongans. I know there's only 5. The basics count as Pyongans. It's confusing, I know. So we would learn Basic 1, so we're 1 Paul Guy behind. Basic 2, now we're 2 Paul Guys behind. Basic 3, now we're 3 Paul Guys behind. So at Pyongan 1, we would knock out both Paul Guy 1 and Paul Guy 2. Now we're only 2 behind. Then for purple belt, we would do Pyongan 2 and Paul Guy 3 and 4. Now we're only 1 behind. So then for blue belt, we would learn Pyongan 3 and Paul Guy 5. Now we're even. So anyway, yeah, they're just too complicated. Why? Why would the lower Paul Guys be too complicated? By the time, as you'll see, by the time you get to Paul Guy 8, it's not really more complicated than Pyongan 5, so they're even at the end. So the progression of difficulty. So here is difficulty. Here is the form level. So the Pyongans go from very simple up to here. The Paul Guys go from green belt level up to here. So there's the Paul Guys, there's the Pyongans. And why do you think that is? Why do you think the Paul Guys start more difficult and they end up in the same place? I will answer that question for you too. It's a political thing. You got all these masters. Who wants to be the master to write basic one? You know, and I think there's a problem with this thinking. Excuse me, I'm getting my dry erase marker, Cap. And I'm still talking so that you cannot count that as dead air time. I think it's political. Nobody wanted to be the guy who wrote Basic 1, and probably the guy who had to write Pal Gwe 1 was still probably resentful that he didn't get to throw in even more fancy stuff, but they're like, we gotta have something. So that's as simple as anybody could bring themselves to write the form. And the Tegooks are the same way. Tegook 1 is another complicated form. It even throws in kicks in the very first form. All right, so there's some history and philosophy of the Pal guys and Pal Gwe 1 specifically. Let's go to Pal Gwe 2. Remember, this was also a greenbelt form that matched so with Pyongan 1, and I agree that it does. So here is Pal Gwe 2. So one cool thing about Pal Gwe 2, it introduces the first kick. So back in the Pal Gwe days, you were introduced the first kick at where everybody else is learning Basic 2, right? Because Pal Gwe 1 goes with Basic 1. Pal Gwe 2 goes with Basic 2. So already they're introducing kicks. For the way we applied them, Pal Gwe 2 would kick in at Greenbelt along with Pyongan 1. So you'd have Pyongan 1, Pal Gwe 1 with inside blocks, which are cool, and we're now missing a form with inside blocks. And then we also have Pal Gwe 2 with a front kick. So you started the kicks one level earlier, and you started with a front kick. Now we don't do kicks and forms until Pyongan 2, and then that kick is a side kick, and it is a single kick within the whole form. Then in Pyongan 3, what kicks do we do? Think about it. Think about it. Inside crescent kicks. We still have yet to do a front kick, bro. What about Pyongan 4? Finally, we get to front kicks. That's because the Japanese style of karate do is the empty hand way. There was a lot more focus on the hands. In fact, the kicks were not high. In Asia, in the Asian countries, the martial arts developed according to what their strengths were. So the Japanese arts, think about the anatomy of a culture that lives on a lot of small islands. There's not a lot of long distance running going on. What there is a lot going on is rowing. You know, we got sushi. Right? We got sushi that comes from Japan because there's a lot of ocean because it's a bunch of islands. So they're rowing out there, right? They're rowing. So they got these strong arms. So everything tended to be hand oriented. And even the kicks. I took karate before I took Taekwondo. And they used to tell us that a low kick was to the knee. A high kick was to the groin. A kick higher than the groin, too high, you might fall down. And that was karate. So I imagine even in the Pyongans and Japanese style, you probably kick like this, you know, and everything and those going down the middle, I'm sure they were like this, like a knife disarm, because the kicks were just not emphasized. However, let's move over to China. No islands in China. It's a great, big, vast, open plain. So how do people get from place to place? They surely don't row, right? They walk, a lot of running, a lot of open space. And so all their styles tend to look open and use a lot of what's strong, what they're used to using, their feet. So you take Kung Fu, a lot of big open moves. Also with the karate, the Japanese styles, everything's kind of crowded. And their style looks crowded. You know, you got a horse stance like this and short moves like this. Everything's really tight. Hey, hey, ha, hey, 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 ha. Really close in stuff. You look at Tai Chi, and it's great big stuff. Here we go. All this big open style stuff. Have Master Settles do a Kung Fu form for you, and you'll see it's very expansive. And the Nahunchis, by the way, come from Japan. They're short and choppy. They move side to side, and they're over. So anyway, where is Korea? Well, it's a peninsula off the coast of China. So it's kind of right in between there. So they took the hand stuff of Japan, by which they were heavily influenced, and the feet stuff of Kung Fu, China, by which they were heavily influenced, and you got Taekwondo, which is kind of a mix of both. So the kicks come in a little earlier with the Pal Guys and the Taegooks than they do with the Pyongans. Let's move on to Pal Gwe 3. Pal Gwe 3. No. Yeah. You might be saying, wait a minute, I saw a lot of other forms. Please don't get mad at me, MJ. Why would I be mad at you, sweetie? I could never be mad at you. Are we supposed to be doing or watching the Pal Guys? Of course, you may of course try them. Watch and learn, listen and learn. So, what did you see with Pal Gwe 3? You probably noticed, hey, at the beginning, it's just like what? What's the beginning look like? Looks like basic 1. What does the next part look up where I messed up? Down block, high block, it's almost basic 2, and then we punch. And then what does this top bar look like? Middle block, middle block, middle block. Middle block looks just like Pyongan 2. Look at that. Going back down the middle, you've got outside blocks like you see in basic 3. And then we travel backwards, which you don't see anywhere. And then at the end, you've got high block punch, which almost looks like Pal Gwe 2, except no kicks. So we used to call this the Frankenstein form. But Master Jeff, Pal Gwe 2 or Pal Gwe 3 is Korean, but yet why does it have influence of all the Japanese? Because these people had been doing Pyongans and basics all their lives, for generations, for 40 years during the Japanese occupation. So of course, the Pal Gwe forms are going to be heavily influenced by the Pyongan forms. That's why you see so many moves in the Pal Gwe forms that look similar to the Pyongan forms. In the Taegooks, they rinsed all that out. Changed the stances, changed the rhythm. No more 2-2-4, 2-2-4. Pretty cool stuff, huh? All right, so we've done Pal Gwe 1, Pal Gwe 2, Pal Gwe 3. So let's do Pal Gwe 4. So watch carefully, see what similarities you see here. you see a little bit of Pyongan 2 in there? Uh-huh. I did too. Yes, there's some Pyongan 2 in there, except the Koreans do it like this, whereas Pyongan 2 is like this. And in Pal Gwe 4, let me make sure I got that right. Pyongan 2 is like this. Pal Gwe 4 is like this. Drop guard cut, just like in Pyongan 2. Then in Pyongan 2, we punch. In Pal Gwe 4, we chop. What else did you see that was similar? Right! You saw some Pyongan 3 in there, didn't you? Only the spear hand was preceded by a kick. So once again, you see the Pyongan influence in the Pal Gwe forms. Let's do Pal Gwe 5. I forgot. I think it's this. What? Yeah! So you saw the introduction of the pressing block, and yes, you saw me have a brain fart on Pal Gwe 5. I'm pretty sure I was right. You do this block, punch, punch, side kick ready, kick, elbow, and then middle block. 99% sure that's correct. But I'll check the records, look it up. So there's Pal Gwe 5, and what cool kind of beginning did you see? Cool first move. I'll answer that for you. We stepped back. Isn't that cool? So you stepped back first. Chumbi, you step back with your left scissors block. Kind of cool, right? And then you go into it. Middle block, down block, middle block, pressing block, punch. I don't remember doing Pal Gwe 5. Yes, sweetie. Zoe, I think we stopped the Pal guys before you got to that level. Master B is cool. Who is saying that kind of blaspheme on my live stream? Let me see if anybody else. Pal Gwe 3 is also the Frankenstein form. Yep. Zoe guessed that. What do you mean, Zoe? Pal Gwe Pyongan 2 and 3. Yep. It's a frame because it has parts formed made like a new form of Frankenstein body. Made of parts of bodies. Thank you, Lila, for that graphic description of Frankenstein. I actually got in trouble for that. At our old place, I told the kids, I said, it's the Frankenstein form. Why? Because, haven't you guys ever heard of Frankenstein? No, Master Jeff, no. They got the little pigtails, no. Well, Frankenstein, the Dr. Frankenstein used to raid graveyards and take dead bodies and sever the parts that still looked not quite rotten, and he put them all together with yet another brain and even somebody else's eyes, and then he used lightning and brought this thing to life. And the kids are like, ah! And their parents complained that they had nightmares. And now I've just broadcast that story over YouTube Live to get 1,000 views in the next 10 years. So here come the emails. Master Jeff, I resented your Pal Gwe class. My daughter is having nightmares. Let's do. Yes, thank you. Stop saying that guy is cool. Yeah, exactly. How dare you, Matthias? Okay, so check it out. Mind off of him. Mine back on Pal Gwe. So now let's go for Pal Gwe 6. Yeah! Yeah! Lila Cruz, you should know the form to which Pal Gwe 6 looks similar. The form I just did. What do you see a lot of in that? Come on, you know. Master Bleep, thank you. We'll get him, don't worry. We'll get him. Oh, he looks so fun. Oh, and he's so funny and mischievous. Ha, ha, ha. We gonna get that, Master Jeff. And then shoe polish. Funny to everyone except me. Zoe, don't think I didn't notice that you kids were laughing. I understand. You couldn't help it. Okay, so yes, Pal Gwe 6 is very similar to Pyongan 4. Note that it is only one form off by rank. You got 4, 5, 6. If you got Pyongan 4, Pyongan 5. So what about 7 and 8? Let's do them. Pal Gwe 7. Pal Gwe 7. Still see a little bit of Pyongan 4 in there, right? And some jumps, so kind of cool. Second to last red belt form. This form has the weirdest place. Yes! David Gleason, the weirdest place of all time. And the key-up happens in the weirdest back down the line combo. So I'm going to do it back to you up until the point where we come back. So here's Pal Gwe 7. We have down blocks, kick, outside blocks, kick, high stick block, kick, middle block, basic 3 punch, high block, side kick, down block, punch, basic 3 punch, high block, side kick, down block, punch. And we have this weird thing, stick, pull out, don't step, punch key up, pendulum kick, down block, chop. Wait a minute. What the smack am I talking about? Pal Gwe 6 is what you were talking about. See, David, with this 20-second delay, I thought you were talking about Pal Gwe 7. So I'm thinking, where's the weird key up? Okay, yeah, with Pal Gwe 6, if we start that one backwards, we got middle block, kick, punch, middle block, kick, punch, down block, block, chop, kick, jump, key up, height, and then down block, grab, kick, punch, just like in Pyongan 4, except it's at a 90-degree angle. Down block, grab, kick, punch, and then we have a middle block, block palm, and then a kick, back fist, key up, height, right there in the middle of the line. And then a kick, high block, and then a side kick, middle block, middle block. Yes, the weirdest back down the line combo and the very weirdest place for a key up. Okay, so what do we have left? We have Pal Gwe 8. in class, boom, is forbidden. That's all I'm saying. Yes! Boom, you got it, girl. I've got to get out of the habit of using that as an expletive or a modifier. Yes. That guy, forbidden. We don't even talk about the Fun Day box. I'm going to get a new one because he drew his picture on it with Master 30th degree. Okay, last one, folks. Pal Gwe 8. Tell me some cool stuff you see in here. Pal Gwe 8. Yeah! And there is Pal Gwe 8. Once again, you see the Pyongan 1 thing on both sides of the beginning moves of Pal Gwe 8. You see the Pyongan 1 combo, the Pyongan 3 combo, sorry, where you do spear, hand, turn, hammer, fist, punch, except in this one, you do spear, hand, turn, back fist, back stance, punch. So you don't stay on the railroad tracks. You're one track over. So that was always a complicated thing. People were used to staying on the railroad tracks for Pyongan 3, then on Pal Gwe 8. Oh, by the way, after all that work you did, you don't have to stay on the railroad tracks anymore. And then you got the very cool combination. When you turn after the first key up, you turn chop, somebody grabs your wrist, so you yank it out, and then elbow, and then block, punch. That's a cool combo. You've got this cool combo. There's an inside block. Somebody's punched you, but you come over his arm, loop around it. You hit him in the ribs as you break his arms. Let me see if I can pull off a quick explanation, or rather an illustration. So somebody has punched, and I'm blocking. Then I loop over his arm, catch his arm here. Now I've got him here, so I break his elbow over my back. And it totally works. You're using your whole body, twisting into it even as you chow down on his kidney with a rear elbow. All right, guys, it's 4:50. I can see you guys again in the Zoom class at 5, where I will answer questions and I will watch you do it if you want to try it, and I'll teach you all I can if you want to try to learn 1 or 2, maybe 3 Pal Gwe forms. Up to you. But the Pal Gwe review will happen at 5 o'clock. But what's happening right now is that I am out of here. This has been a South Miami Taekwondo live stream with Master Jeff. Avoid practicing the techniques during live stream with Master Jeff while drunk, stoned, sloshed, tipsy, buzzed, blotto, slammed, plowed, jolly, play-eyed, hammered, wasted, inebriated, or otherwise intoxicated. Watching live stream with Master Jeff, you acknowledge the possibility of and waive all liability for hematoma, laceration, occipital fracture, broken nose, acute mandibular dislocation, strained wrist, hyperextended elbow, broken ribs, bruising, or bleeding, tears, sprains, fractures, dislocated shoulder, or concussion. All rights reserved. Unauthorized presentation and publication strictly prohibited.